Hey, what's going on, friends? Jason here with Love Local Media Agency, here with my partner in crime, Monica LaRocco McVeigh. How are you?
All the last names.
That's a lot of names.
A lot of names. I'm doing good, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to be on episode 4 of Love Local Chicagoland podcast. So to be able to do this show with you it excites me, not only for the person that we have here today, but for the people that have been here and also the people that will come forward. Because what we're trying to do with this podcast is to bring awareness to things that are happening within our local community to be able to help people.
And we love that.
That's kind of our jam.
It's kind of our jam.
It's kind of our jam. It's how all this started. So today we're going to talk about mental health. So
with a powerhouse.
Like,
whoa.
Yeah, definitely a power. She is an author. She is a gym rat and a professional bodybuilder. And she's also a clinical licensed therapist as well.
And a mother/stepmother of 5.
I got to know how she gets more hours in her day because there is a lot going
She
on
makes
there.
it happen.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but she does.
But super excited to have her here to be able to talk about mental health and to talk about how it impacts us as community members. Whether we want to say it does or not, it does, to say the least. So let's talk about it. Let's get down to it. But Amy, super excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
So, we're excited to dive in and to talk about a lot of great things. You are local. You are a licensed therapist. You are an entrepreneur. You're an author. You're so many things on top of being a mom and being and a wife. So to be able to dive into that, it's going to be exciting. Mm-hmm. We have this thing that we call, is it local faves that
local
we do?
Faves.
We obviously we love local, so we want to get that out there in front.
Yeah. Yes.
But let's talk about one of your local faves here in our local area.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the gym, so obviously I love. I'm a member of a Lifetime, right, which is a big gym that's all across the United States. But I really love Melt Hot Yoga, and that's in Algonquin.
Cool.
So she actually just moved to a brand new studio space. I haven't been to the new space yet, but hot yoga is kind of how I decompress. Like if my body's hurting or my mind is running, hot yoga kind of does that for me. I'm actually 200-hour yoga teacher trained, even though I don't
So add that to your list.
Yeah, add that to my list. I don't teach, but that's something that I'm interested in. So
I
Super
think
cool.
that name Melt is amazing.
Yeah.
So we have that in common. I actually have my yoga teacher certification too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So to hear that, it's like it just took me right back to like my yoga days of those prompts that you give and.
Wait, you're a yoga teacher too?
Let's stop the podcast and leave.
Let's do this right now. Namaste. Let's go.
Down dog. Let's go.
That is super cool. So I have to ask this question totally off script, but hot yoga versus regular yoga, what's the experience? How is it different?
I mean, for me, it just is allows me to stretch more deeply into the poses. I like sweating too. I feel like it helps relieve toxins and kind of wrings out your nervous system. But it's definitely a preference thing. I know some people who really dislike the heat. So
yeah, I'd say it's a mindset thing. Not only like me, if I'm doing yoga, I'm hurting somewhere at this point in time in my life. So doing that plus the heat, but I think it would be painful. But I also think there could be a lot of going through it, the mind battle that you would have to be able to do to be able to finish it. I think that could be healthy, especially with the sweat and the other stuff.
And it's great in the dead of winter when you're like freezing.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
We talked too, like in my yoga days. Not that we're going to have a whole podcast about that, but
next one.
Yeah, the next
Yeah.
one we can talk all about yoga. But it was the fire. That it would, that was what the idea was to burn that fire, and I would always picture too, like you really are putting in there what you want to get rid of, right? So like you're building that fire and burning off whatever you don't want to get rid of. I know I'm putting my hand right in front of the camera, sorry, Adam. But anyway, it's super cool. I love that. Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for the swag.
Yeah.
This is cool. Like now we have 4 episodes and 2 of the 4 brought us mugs. So hint, we like mugs.
we love mugs.
You mean like a wall.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
Definitely would be. But we're looking forward to having this conversation, Amy. And life is hard. and especially when you're a parent, you're working, just humans are messy overall, but mental health is like a big thing that is, I feel like it's more prevalent now than what it was in the past, but we still have a long ways to be able to go. So we're excited to dive into your expertise and tie it into some community stuff as well as we continue to evolve. But like, let's hear a little bit about you and like your backstory, what you do, what you enjoy, who you are.
Sure. Backstory is that I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been licensed in Illinois for about 12 years. I went to graduate school in California near San Francisco, but I'm from the northern Illinois area. So graduate school, came back here, decided to get licensed here. I had 2 children at the time when I moved back, and that was kind of the reason. It's like I needed them to have their grandparents in their life and be surrounded by their family. And then in 2016, I opened my own practice. Before that, I kind of just worked in other people's private practices. So in California, I worked for a psychiatrist, which was interesting because I learned all about psychopharmacology and med management. And actually, I was trained in neurofeedback and EMDR through him. So that was interesting because he was a psychiatrist, but kind of went along with kind of more holistic modalities, and that's why I took that job. And then Illinois, like I said, I worked in a couple other people's private practices until I was like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I have figured out how to run this business, so why don't I just open up my own? So the first office was in Elgin, and it was a 16-room suite. So we had about 20 therapists on staff to begin with. And it was very full, which was really great. Elgin happened to be pretty desolate at that time as far as mental health went. You know, we kind of had major behavioral health companies like Ecker Center or, there's a couple drug and alcohol centers, but there really wasn't an outpatient practice. So it was good for that community. And I use this kind of past tense because then COVID hit. And that 16-room office space just was not necessary anymore. I like to say that the good thing that we got from mental health during COVID was telehealth. Pretty quickly, the government decided that they would allow us to bill for it in private pay insurances. So it was a gift in that way, but we didn't really need the office for 2 years. So the physical practice did stay open the entire time because it is medical, technically, right? But I did move the office space from Elgin to St. Charles, and that one is still open and still sees clients in that physical location. So just downsized to a smaller suite. And then recently, in the last couple of years, I moved my family to Dundee, and I wanted just something really close by that I could kind of hop over and see clients in person if needed, but I still see people via telehealth, sometimes from my house. But so the second location that we have running right now that's physical is in Algonquin, and it's just me in that space. And then I employ other therapists that work in the St. Charles office.
Oh, very nice.
So that's kind of the evolution of that.
So how did you see telehealth take off once it got implemented? Was it like right after COVID? Did it take some time? And then
it was pretty quickly because we had to kind of switch everyone to telehealth. I mean, a lot of people were coming in the office daily, and then people were scared to come in. Even though we were open, the therapists had their concerns, their own personal reasons, elderly family member that they lived with that wasn't very well, so they didn't want to come in the office. Sure. So I had to negotiate that from kind of a management perspective with employees, and then also a client-facing perspective at the same time. But yeah, everyone shifted pretty seamlessly, I would say. There were about 2 weeks where we were like, what are we doing? Yeah. How do we do this? And then everyone actually had to get trained on these HIPAA-compliant video platforms. We had to figure out what systems to use. Oh, wow. So there was a whole kind of
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
See why, but yeah.
Yeah, so all the therapists needed kind of extensive telehealth training, Yeah, so it was a big whirlwind for a minute, but we figured it out.
And how did your clients respond to that switch, that pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I still have a belief that it's not ideal, but it is convenient, and it does allow for more people to get help than maybe they wouldn't. You know, off Mike, we were discussing just how now you don't have an excuse, right? I mean, what you said was lovely. What did you say about it?
Yeah, just that, I through going to therapy myself, there was always a really good excuse. I don't have time.
I don't have
my
time.
family needs me. My kids need me. Work needs me. Everybody needs me. I don't have the time. And
Right.
telehealth just screws that excuse.
Yeah. Right. Because I see a lot of clients that do work full time, and they'll log in on their lunch break, or they'll shift their lunch break to a different time, and we'll do it then. So
I think it's important. I think it's mental health is still, I don't know, you know the data more than me, but some people are like, okay, let's talk about mental health. Other people still are like, that's taboo, and it's like going back to like the previous generations that you just didn't want to talk about. Like, as humans, we struggle.
Yeah,
flat out, and
absolutely.
There's for many other reasons to do that. But telehealth allows you to have that conversation. What and to be able to work on yourself and to be able to help, like, put your life, I don't want to say back together, because therapy doesn't mean you're falling apart. It could help you keep things together and continue growing, because you're learning coping mechanisms, right? And you're seeing things within yourself. So telehealth helps us do that easier now.
It does.
What's like from a patient standpoint, like what's the feedback that you've gotten from them versus traditional versus the telehealth?
Well, I think it's something that we've all kind of gotten used to, right? Because we've all had a million Zoom meetings by now. And I think, there is something missing with that human connection. Like, we're all sitting in this room right now, and specifically, psychology-wise, like the whites of people's eyes, or, actually feeling their physical presence. There's an energy exchange that happens in a room. But I think telehealth is pretty effective. I mean, I still get very similar emotional reactions. I always think a session's actually going well if people are like, I'm sorry, I'm crying. I'm like, good. That means we're like processing through stuff and you're letting it go. So that still happens during those sessions. So
there's actually I know that you mentioned a bunch of different types of therapy, and I want us to get into that too.
Yeah.
Because there are many different types. And, just to your point about telehealth being effective even on, regarding various types of therapy, I mean, I can attest to the fact that I did hypnotherapy. And even, you need to think, like, how could a hypnosis therapy work via Zoom? But it was very effective. I mean, it changed I mean, it sounds so cliche to say, but it changed my life.
Yeah.
And so to think that like something as different as hypnotherapy could be effective that way, it's like, okay, well, maybe. And I think, like, for moms, people who have kids, it's not always easy to get a sitter. And that's sometimes part of our stress as parents and things like that. It's like, but
and
you
moms think about themselves. In my experience, most moms think about themselves last, and it's their kids' top priority, right?
Yeah. But if you can make an appointment to, like, let me, I would say it like this, like, I'm going to put my kids on a movie.
Yep.
I'm going to put them on a movie.
Right.
And then I'm going to go upstairs.
Coming out.
And, and then get on the Zoom.
A lot of I see a lot of moms. I tend to market kind of in moms groups because it is part of my own experience. So I'm like, this is a population that I connect with anyway, right? But that's exactly what happens. They'll put their kid in another room with whatever, a device or maybe toys, or sometimes I've even had moms, like, I've seen like kids in car seats in their car and they're picking up from preschool or whatever, but we make it work, right?
Yes, gosh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That really is.
Yeah.
Meeting people where they're at. That's what needs to happen with therapy.
Right.
For somebody to be able to say, okay, I'll try it. Because so many people, they need it and they don't know how to get their needs met.
Right.
or they think it won't help them because they don't. I totally agree with that, or they don't. Family member, whatever you want to say, the feedback that I got from them, like, you should go to therapy, was like, oh, I've went to therapy before and it doesn't work. And then the next question I asked was like, well, were you open to them?
Right.
And he paused. I'm like, well, of course it ain't gonna work if you don't put in the work.
Yeah.
Like, it's like anything
right.
else.
Yeah. The therapist shouldn't be working harder than you.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a waste of both of your time at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The therapist is but to be there and to, like, you know when it's going to help. If you really let a therapist in and you're down to do the work, in my experience, it helps. It's not always easy.
Not easy or fun.
It's not fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you go to some places. But if you go to those places and then climb out of those places through the coping mechanisms and that you're talking about, like, it's a win-win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I always think of myself as kind of like an accountability partner as well. Like, I would say that I'm more direct than some therapists. You know, obviously the first couple of sessions are like, get to know you, really kind of dig in, understand your story, but then we get to work. Like, what are your goals? Why are you here? What do you want to work on? What would you like to improve? You know, what kind of maybe negative coping mechanisms have you had or do, and you know, what would you like that to look like? And so we're kind of creating a path and a vision, and then in my opinion, I'm responsible for helping them kind of stay on track with that.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, because I think when you were bringing that up, it's like I've heard that too from people where they've said, like, oh, you know, because it's like, oh, clearly you've got something going on when you benefit from therapy, but you get met sometimes with that statement of, I've done that already, doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you say as a therapist? What do you say to people who, you know, will give you that kind of a response? Or
I mean, sometimes I think, to Jason's point, like, maybe they just weren't ready. Maybe they just were at this time of their life where there was too much resistance going on. Otherwise, sometimes it's a fit. Like, maybe you didn't find a good fit and then you kind of gave up, right? Because therapists have different styles and they have different ways of doing things. And that's why when I'm always marketing the practice, the larger practice that I run, I'll say things like, you know what, I see clients, and then I also have therapists on staff that see clients, and you may like me and think that we're going to have a great, you know, run together, or you might not like me, and that's okay. And then that's why there are other people on staff that you might connect with better, right? So sometimes it's like a willingness to kind of go through that process to find the right fit as well.
You know, and that goes back to what you were saying about just being in the room and feeling the energy from other people.
Yeah.
It's like having that as something, it's okay to feel what you feel, and we're going to just adjust from there.
Yeah.
And that might even go back to the different types of therapy styles.
Absolutely.
You know, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? You know, you mentioned EMDR, which always gets my, like, I love that idea. You know, I haven't ever done it myself, but I've known people who have. And for those people who maybe don't know, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so EMDR is what I think is the number one treatment for trauma. We actually, the EMDR Association advocated with the VA for about 20 years before the VA was like, oh, you're right, which is unfortunate, because if you think about that, how many veterans could have been saved?
Yeah. I mean, and just, you know, and this is a trigger warning for people, but just thinking about, you know, the loss rate of veterans.
Oh,
I mean, just so to think that could have been, they could have been.
It could have been helped, yes, if the VA would have gotten on board. Now they actually hire EMDR therapists, which is great.
Amazing.
So, EMDR is created for trauma, but I always like to give the caveat that, like, trauma is kind of a scary word in general, and people, like, nobody has gone through life unscathed, right?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, like, everybody's had these experiences that may have affected them on a really deep level, and then may still affect their everyday functioning, you know, in ways that are unconscious or conscious, right? So what EMDR does is lets people process through those moments. Your memories are stored on both the right and left hemisphere of your brain. So to fully activate those memories, we actually have to stimulate both the right and left hemisphere of your brain. If you were to watch it originally, it kind of looked like hypnosis. It was like, look at my fingers, follow them to the right to left side, and this tracks from right and left hemisphere. Now I have this lovely device that is basically a box that I hold with cords. And people hold these sensors in their right and their left hand. Sometimes they'll stick them under their knees if they're sitting. In little kids, I'll put them in their socks. And they just vibrate from the right to the left side while they're experiencing these memories. And then the questioning, it goes in it goes in the same order every time. It goes like, tell me the picture of the worst part of that memory. So there's a visual component. People bring up this visual of the worst part of this thing. What emotions are connected to it? So then they'll name emotions like, I'm afraid, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, whatever. What happens in your body? So now we're activating the body memory, right? Because things get stuck in our nervous system. So that's like, my heart's beating fast, I feel sick to my stomach, I feel really tense. And then the last question is, what do you believe about yourself at that time? So everybody has this like negative kind of imprint that happens during trauma, and that might be like, I'm going to die. Well, you didn't actually die, right? So that's just like the negative thought. So we bring it all up, which is the picture, the emotions, the body, and that negative cognition. And then we turn on the bilateral stimulation, which is now these little vibrating sensors. And what happens is this rapid memory recall. So EMDR I like to describe as kind of like, you feel like you're like on speed. Like it starts with this one memory that you wanted to work on, and then it might jump to this other thing that happened to you in college, and then it might jump to this other thing that happened to you last week, and then it might jump to this other thing that happened to you when you were a kid. And what we're doing is we're taking trauma brain, which this is your brain, this is how trauma brain feels, right? You're just kind of triggered all the time and feel kind of off. We're connecting the neurons from the right and left hemisphere, and then we're making your brain feel whole again. So we're bringing it all up. You're processing through all this junk. It's a very emotional experience. We're reconnecting the neurons, and then people have immediate relief, like lots of emotions in sessions, usually lots of crying, snot everywhere, right? But then they leave and they feel like it almost has this like lightening effect. They feel lighter. They're like, ugh, I processed through all that stuff I was shoving down for so long. I like to think of experiences or trauma as kind of like we're stacking rocks into our nervous system. And then over time, if we don't do anything with that, we're just carrying that weight around, right?
And it's so heavy.
So heavy. Yeah. And so normal talk therapy, like maybe we'll get to one rock and we'll take it out and we'll place it aside, and we can do that, you know, that's good. But like EMDR kind of takes like a huge scoop out at once. And so the other kind of side effect is that oftentimes people's dream patterns change for a little bit. Like they might be thinking about this stuff in their dream, which is not necessarily great because it might be a little scary. But again, it's their body and brain going like, yes, please, can we work on this? Can we process it?
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then the more times we do this, the more scoops we're taking out, and people just, they feel physically and mentally better.
Yeah. It's you talk about like you see it on people when with trauma, and when I love during our conversation here, like we all have trauma. Like
everybody does.
Whether you think you do or not, you do. So the more that you realize that and that it affects our body, affects our mind, as humans we could go to work and figure it out. We didn't know that 30 years ago, or maybe we did, but it wasn't as mainstream, right? As it is. And now we realize that we all have trauma, and early childhood trauma is like, that stays with you for a while, right? It could stay with you your whole life.
Correct.
So to be aware of that, I think is important. I've learned a lot over the last few years. COVID, I think like many of us, exposed many things, and I saw different buckets of people. I saw people that were working to get to a good spot, and that were allowing, whether it was their faith or whether it was therapy or whatever, to help chisel them. And then I saw people that weren't doing that. And for the first time in my life, and I was over 40 years old, I could read it on their body language and see it, because I was struggling to like work towards that good side of like making myself feel better. I never saw it in other people before. And it's got to be so hard to live life with that type of built up. You talked about rocks. Like I couldn't even imagine that.
It's a heavy load to carry.
It's 100% a heavy load of carries, but so that I can't even say it. What is it called?
EMDR.
EMDR. I'm gonna have to write that down. All right. that intrigues me, because it's, if you're willing to put in the work, that yes, you're gonna have to go to spots, but don't you want to experience joy again?
Absolutely.
Don't you want to be happy again? And if you're like that, I don't even know if your body allows you to truly experience joy if you're that tense, or
you're
if
locked
that
up.
whatever it is, right? You're and I want to make sure our audience knows she's not just some therapist that went to school and great. Like you went through struggle yourself.
I did, yeah.
Can you? You don't know. You need to go into anything you don't want to share, but I want our audience to know, like, you're a therapist, but you want to help people, and you're gonna help people, but you're a therapist that has gone through some shit.
Yeah, right.
Anything you want to share?
Yeah. So I mean, it's all in the book. So if you want to read all about it, the Ascension Mentality, that blue one, yep. So that is actually a memoir, and it is about everything from kind of my early childhood through college, through grad school, through I was married before I got a divorce, and so it's about my path, but then it's also kind of about like what I learned about stuckness and people's ability to kind of process through some of their stuff and then come out of it into a good place. So yeah, my own story, I mean, I briefly mentioned a little bit of it, but early childhood trauma, absolutely. I had an alcoholic father growing up, and then I had this mother that was a professional, but she kind of needed to carry the weight of that. So she was a college professor, and then also had to work kind of more jobs to support our family. We always lived in nice homes, so everything from the outside looking in looked nice and perfect, but there was a lot of secrecy. And so I developed some kind of negative coping mechanisms from that. I actually went down a path where at one point I was like, I'm drinking too much. What am I doing? What is this, right? Went to a lot of therapy, learned a lot of messaging myself. And then at one point in my life, I was like, I know that because of my pain, I actually want to go into a helping profession. So I knew from actually high school, I figured out that I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to help people through hard times because I had gone through, childhood trauma, alcoholic parent. He basically raised me because my mom was working so much. So to be raised by no one, pretty much, right? Because if you're raised by an alcoholic, they're not really present. And then, my own kind of struggles with like substance abuse, and then what I learned about my first marriage, because there's no manual for relationships and marriage. And so to come from zero model of that and then try to make that work was kind of a nightmare as well. And then to where I am today, like I don't drink at all. Now I have this other hobby of bodybuilding, and I have this amazing partner, and I have an amazing blended family, and actually 2 really great co-parents, and we all work together.
That's great.
But it's been a journey, and so that's kind of about that.
Cool. So this is the book you were just talking about, the memoir that you have. And this one is? It's
a journal.
Okay.
So I wrote probably 400 some questions. And so unlike some printed journals, you get something new every single day. And that's just kind of so people can, if they want to, kind of take a deeper dive into their own psyche, into their own, sense of self, so that you can learn more about yourself and how to help yourself.
Cool. I love it. I see morning meditation in here.
Yep.
It's kind of broken down just by the day, right?
That's
Is that kind of,
Yeah. There's kind of prompts for morning and evening, like a reflection, so that, if you take even just 5 minutes of your day in the morning and 5 minutes of your evening, it just allows you to kind of process through your day so that you can do better the next day. Actually, this this bracelet that I gave everyone says beat yesterday.
Swagging out
Yes.
today.
And
it.
that's just kind of one of my mantras is like, luckily as humans, we're given this gift of a new day every single day. So, you know, the more well that someone gets right on their healing journey, the shorter the amount of time that they spend in yuckiness, right? So like that's kind of one of my indicators that people are getting better is like, okay, yeah, you had a hard moment or you had a hard day, but like how long did that last? Was it a week? Was it a month? Or was it like moments? And if they're like, oh, Amy, like now like my mindset is much better and it's moments or it's a day, I'm like, okay, then that's a really good sign that we're doing the process, we're getting better.
You know, that alone, it's beautiful because you can just break it down to like, okay, what really is this? What are you really experiencing here? And something else that you said in there brought me to a thought about the idea that when you are getting your own rocks, handled, when you're when you're scooping them out and you're handling that, the impact that you will have on others will change because you're not carrying that weight.
Right.
It's like when someone is in physical pain.
Right.
You know, when somebody's in physical pain, it's hard to be around them, right? Because I mean, I don't know if I've had surgery on whatever, my back, blah blah blah, different things, but it's not fun to be around somebody who's in pain. I mean, they need care, and you got to help them through it, right? But it's not fun. It's that they're experiencing pain, and you can't really do anything about it. It's similar in that way because they're carrying a heavy load, and they are not always able to, to put that load down,
right? Until
they actually can take that moment and get the therapy that they need. So to think that there are so many different ways, EMDR, hypnotherapy, just your standard weekly practice. It's like all of those things are accessible opportunities so that you can change the impact that you have on the people around you. So it's for you, and that by you working on yourself, you're changing other people. I feel like I just went a lot of different places in that moment, but
I mean, I always kind of give like a warning caveat, like sometimes we surround ourselves with people that have similar woes or behaviors, right? So if you are focused on yourself as an individual and you're working on healing and getting better, sometimes at first people don't like it, right? Because they're like, who are you? You're changing. You're saying no to the activities that we used to do together. Or who do you think you are? You're getting better, and now do you think you're better than me or something? So oftentimes there's like a resistance from others around them at first to this change, even if it's a good change, right? But then once you kind of get over that, and maybe you do a cleansing of those people in your life that aren't good for you, what you just said is so true. You then become, and that's actually one of the parts of the book is this sense of abundance, right? Because then you're like, I did this thing, and it's almost like you're then responsible for going and spreading your new outlook or your positivity onto the world.
Totally. You have to, I learned through what you both are talking about, you have to set boundaries. It doesn't mean you don't care for somebody. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't want them in your life. But it means that you, for yourself, have to set boundaries with those people or that person, right? And through those boundaries, sometimes people don't like or do that, but you have to protect you at the end of the day. Is it whether you're a mom, whether you're a dad, whether you're not any of that, but you should still want to experience happiness and joy. And when things are coming at you that are like that, it could be a soul sucker type thing for you, right? I think about the people that are struggling in our community. We talked a little bit about this, and like the buckets or the categories of people, and went from anywhere from divorce to families struggling, to kids, those types of things. What are some like best practices or go-to advice if somebody's listening to this and be like, man, I'm going through some hard times now. Maybe it's not even one of those buckets. Maybe it's another bucket.
Yeah.
Like, what are some signs that maybe they should seek help, whether it's therapy or whether it's some type of self-help thing? Like, where does your mind go?
Yeah, I think that when you start to notice that your practices of daily living are really affected. So I oftentimes ask people, like, how is your sleep? What are eating patterns like, right? If they're not eating enough or they're eating too much. How are their relationships, whether that be familial relationship or work relationships? How is their organization? I think a lot of people feel very scattered when they're not in a good place. So if they feel like they're, missing appointments or not organized or their attention is really bad, that would be a good indicator. So those are kind of the main ones for sure.
And Jason and I have talked, just doing life and, building this and everything else. It's like, I've shared with him, what my depression looks like and what is, and it's different for everybody, right? I mean, certainly people have, substance abuse things and, but like you said, eating and, that type of thing plays a part in it. All of it, it's just different. And it's almost like just paying attention to yourself. There's when I'm in the
grace along that journey.
Yes,
too.
grace. Yeah. There's a playlist that I have for the kids, and one of the songs on it, I don't know, it kind of came through Spotify. Who knows where it came from, but it's called "What Does My Body Need?" And it's and the way she sings it, she's saying, "I ask myself in a gentle voice, what does my body need?"
I love that.
Isn't it beautiful? And I think about that too when it comes to, the question is do I need therapy? It's almost like take a minute, pause, and ask yourself, what does my body need?
Yeah.
Because if
Stop fighting it.
Yeah, if your soul needs somebody to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, there's such simple self-care things that people don't realize. Like when I actually tell clients you need to write down 3 things that you're going to do for self-care per day, and people are like, Amy, come on, I don't have time for that. And I'm like, no, I don't mean go book a massage for an hour and a half. 3 self-care.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. 3 self-care activities could be writing 5 minutes in your journal. It could be I'm gonna go outside on my lunch break, even if it's cold out here in Chicago. Bundle up, go get a little bit of sun, a little bit of fresh air, right?
Goes a long way.
Goes a long way. Or even just maybe I'm going to spend 5 more minutes in my bathroom, take a longer shower in the morning. Maybe I'm going to put on the good smelling lotion and practice my own spa day, right? So it can be little tiny things, but it's very true that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So like you said, moms specifically, but there's lots of people who go and take care of work and take care of their families and whatever. And then they're like, why do I feel so crappy? Well, you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, totally. You triggered something there that went back to our conversation when we were prepping for this call. And you talked about when you look at a patient, look at somebody you're looking to support, you're looking at tell the audience the exact question, but you're looking at their body, mind, and spirit. You're looking at those things. So to go into a little bit more about why is the body, mind, and spirit so important to be able to get to where people need to get to go?
Yeah, so the practice is called Balance Wellness Collective, and it's called that for a reason because, obviously this thought about balance is pretty and beautiful, but there's no such thing as actual balance. But I think that it is achievable in
if you think it is, go ask your kid.
Overall thought.
they'll remind you it's not.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I really do think of kind of that triad of body, mind, and spirit. And if you're neglecting one of those categories, your mental health will go on the decline.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So like I just said, I'm asking about food. I'm asking about sleep. I'm asking about exercise. I'm asking about socialization. Have you seen your friends and family? I'm asking about your work relationships. And actually my degree, I'm a marriage and family therapist. We're also thinking about things in a structural perspective as far as, mental health goes. So like you are not yourself on an island. So I want to know about like the entire picture. We also call that the gestalt of things. Like what is that? If you look at a painting, you're not just picking out things, you're trying to look at the entire picture is what the gestalt actually means. So yeah,
I love that. And I think in our society, not your practice, but experience I had, I struggled with anxiety, depression. There was like probably a 10 to 15 year stint, if I look back and reflect, that it was there, and I didn't do the necessary work that I needed to do until later into it, through growth and through therapy, through my faith, all of that. But when I went to the doctor, they weren't looking at body, mind, and spirit. They were listening to my symptoms, and they're like, oh, you need this, and you need this. Those things, and you're like you want to say something, keep on rocking for this. Those two things were not the things I needed, and in fact they probably put a hindrance more on my life because it wasn't the right thing, because they weren't trying to fix the body, mind, spirit. Not like if I went to you to be like, are you working out? No. Okay, start there. Right. Like those types of things. Are you eating? Oh, you just ate fast food on the way over here? Well, no shit, you feel bad. Like it's a part of it. So go into some of your philosophies around incorporating that body, mind, spirit to help people grow like the right way. It's not a Band-Aid. You're not offering people a Band-Aid. You're saying if you put in the work, you could live a better life.
Yeah. I get along very well with functional medicine doctors, or holistic practitioners, because we think the same way, right? So I think that a lot of Western physicians, unfortunately, kind of cut off the top of your head, is what I always say. Like they'll go in and you're experiencing these symptoms, right? Especially, I see a lot of clients that have kind of this autoimmune type stuff, whether it be like fibromyalgia or celiac disease or whatever. Anything that's like attacking your autoimmune system is actually attached to trauma, like unresolved trauma.
Wow.
Yeah. So I get a lot of referrals from chiropractors who know this, or functional medicine doctors who know this, right? I work with clients oftentimes that have a load of diagnosis that are medical diagnosis, but they're like, I know that there's trauma that's stuck in there, and I'm pretty aware that like I need to work on that, even though I've tried all of the supplements and I've tried all of the exercise plans. I've tried meeting with a nutritionist. I've tried everything else, except I didn't really want to work on this one piece, but here I am. And guess what? Those symptoms resolve.
It's crazy.
Yes. I remember, this is bringing us back to the yoga conversation and the idea that I remember it's king pigeon. So for those of you who are yoga practitioners, it's king pigeon is when you're on the ground and your leg is up at your chest, you've bent it, and it's kind of like this. And I remember my yoga teacher talking about how you have to just stay in that position because a lot of our trauma is stored in tissues and that type of thing. And what she said was that sometimes people will be in there for a while and then begin to cry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so those emotions are coming out,
right? Because you're
causing them to you process.
Yeah, you're releasing it.
Yeah, you're releasing it.
So was it you that taught me like trauma is stored in the hips?
Yes.
That is? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we used to say in yoga, was that was.
But it could be anywhere, or is it?
I mean,
I
believe
hips, or does it
in all
depend?
of that. I'm not sure, but I mean, I definitely think that yoga definitely releases some of that too.
Sure.
Again, if we're talking about mind-body kind of work. Actually, there's a chapter in my book about breath work that I did, and so I've done breath work several times and had a huge emotional release from that breath work too. I worked with a practitioner that does a lot of kind of like musical interventions. So a lot of like sounds, and you kind of lay there in the sounds. And at first you're like, this is dumb. What am I doing? And then this huge release came all the times that I did it. So
awesome.
There are other ways to get to it, right? But I think why not try, different kinds.
Absolutely.
And everybody is different, and everybody body is built differently. And so again, though, to your point, Jason, that you made, like, you have to be willing to open your mind and expand your thought processes and do stuff that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're all just a bunch of cells.
Yeah.
Right? We're just walking cells, right? And so to think that, it has to stay. What we're holding has to stay in those cells is not true. It's
doesn't.
like, but getting that, being courageous, being brave enough to take that step and to say, you know what, I'm gonna see what
happens.
What happens?
Yeah.
Let's just try,
Right.
And if I cry,
it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it out.
And then I would love it if people used therapy and some of these interventions that we're talking about on the preventative end of things. How much healthier would everybody be,
Yes.
right? Because what's happening now is people will come in and they have years of feeling like crap, and then they're like, hey, fix it. And I'm like, cool, we can do that. But on the next side of your life, after we've resolved some of this, please use it in more of preventative manner. And like, luckily, in my practice right now, I'm so excited that I've gotten a lot of younger people, and younger I mean kind of like in their 20s, early 20s, that, my typical intro questions are like, why are you here? And I've had a couple younger people be like, I think I should be here. I think I like should be doing this work,
That's awesome. Yeah.
Like, not like they can't even like name like really why. They're just like, I think it seems like a good idea. And so that's like what I say about therapy that I would love to happen, is this normalization of it, right?
Yes.
Like I went to graduate school in California. They are ahead of us than the Midwesterners. Midwesterners are kind of like, oh, you have a problem? Let's like pick up the rug, dust the stuff under it.
Somebody give me a beer.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I kind of joke that Californians are more like, oh, so like I went to therapy today. My therapist talked to my other therapist, and I got my green smoothie,
So
and
true.
I went to yoga.
So true.
But like,
I lived out west, and that is so true.
But it's more normal.
Yeah.
They talk about it, even in graduate school, all the graduate students that I was in class with were like, oh yeah, my anxiety or whatever, like it's just it's a conversation.
Imagine the power in that. If we're
Yeah.
all just being like, man, my therapist said I'm a hot mess today, or maybe that's not what they're going to say. Don't throw that out there. But
Yeah.
you're working through something and you're able to talk about it with another human being. What that's done for us, like our relationship, in a year and 6 months in now, if we didn't have that, we would hate each other.
Right.
But because we're able to like talk through it and be like, okay, I'm here right now, or I'm here
Yeah.
right now, and like the other person could help, like, okay, they're not good now, I could carry the weight, or I could do this,
Yeah.
or I could, we have each other's backs because we're able to be real with each other.
Vulnerable.
I-
Yeah.
If we weren't, I don't know where we would be if we
Yeah.
didn't have that piece of it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's been our secret sauce. We could get through anything because
For
we could
sure.
just figure it out.
I'll share on my social media like fun like therapy memes that I think are hilarious, but I'm glad that like people are just like talking about it in
Yeah.
that way
Yeah.
now,
So then when you're at a table and one of the friends at your table is saying like, God, I've been going through I've been going through some hard stuff, and people just say, oh, did you talk to your therapist? Well, I don't have a therapist. Well, why not?
Right.
Like it's that kind of thing. Like, well, of course you should have a
Almost everybody
therapist.
I feel like almost everybody should get a therapist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Especially-
agree.
We always probably needed it, but this, like, our world's going faster than it ever has before. So like as humans, we don't really know what the effect all this is going to have on us yet.
Yeah.
So to take care of ourselves so we could experience joy through whatever the heck this is, and the evolutions that are around it, like, it's super important. Like robots will take us over. We might as well experience joy as we do it. So I want to start wrapping us up here, but I
Yeah.
kind of want to do a couple rapid fire questions, but they're important questions, so don't think you have to go too quick, but quick enough.
Okay.
So first one are, what are the roadblocks for people to get therapy usually?
Yeah, they're scared of the process. They don't know what to expect. And that's why it's important for me to talk about it specifically, like on these kind of platforms. But also, I really lay it out in the first session. I'm like, here's what it's going to look like. Like I just said, like first couple of sessions, we're going to get to know each other. Then we're going to get to work. We're going to set goals. We're going to check in with the goals. So I think there's not only understanding, but then trust when people know the process.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So I love that. Trust once they learn the process.
Yeah.
And when should someone reach out to therapy?
Yeah, well, like we just said, everybody could use a therapist, really.
So if
So-
you're having a tough day and if you see yourself going in a cycle, could that be it?
Yeah,
Some we all go in cycles, like sometimes those
Yeah.
cycles aren't healthy.
Or if they find themselves in like specific behaviors that they're like, I just don't know why I can't kick this. You know, a lot of the times it might be like you said, kind of just repetitive thinking. Like, I don't know why I'm worrying all the time. Or there's behaviors associated with that, like they're using substances or their relationship is going down the tubes. Those are all good indicators.
They aren't experiencing joy because of any of that.
Yeah, no.
Pick up the phone.
And we are made like I was saying earlier, like we're just a bunch of cells, you know, but really truly our bodies are made to process. Like we have the ability to process everything from, you know, I mean, even I'm drinking this, you know, and you know, I'm going to have to run to the ladies' room in a little bit, you know, because it's water and I'm going to have to just pee, right?
Yeah.
That's a mini clip. But the thing is it's like our bodies are made to process.
Right.
So trauma and everything else that we experience in our lives is no different.
Yeah.
We're made to process.
Well, I'm loving this conversation, and Amy, I have a feeling this won't be the last time that we talk to you as we continue to evolve. As we close out the show today, talk about local plans. What are some of your favorite go-tos, whether it's this weekend or another weekend? Where do you like to go with your family to be able to get away to do life?
I mean, my you know, obviously I do something pretty serious for work, so my chill time is really spent pretty locally. I don't go a lot of places. I really love the Crystal Lake Farmers Market, so that's on Sundays. It's really cool. There's this huge mansion up there called the Dole Mansion.
Oh, wow.
And so they host it in the winter in the mansion, and then in the summer months they'll pull it outside of the mansion. So again, Sundays I think from 10 to 2, really cool.
That's a local video. It's a
for
really
sure.
cool space.
It's really cool. And then similarly, another farmer's market that's really cool is the Woodstock Square. I don't know if you've ever been up there.
Never been up there. I've heard it.
Yeah,
heard good things.
very cool. Let's see, what other like local events? I don't know. I'm just excited for summer season and patios and live music and all of that.
That makes
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kid's actually going to a really cool farm camp if you're looking for local things for your kids to do. There's this really amazing farm by my house called All Grass Farms.
Okay.
And so farm camp is like every day she's doing kind of like learning like sustainable farm principles, and one day they have like knife sharpening, and one day they have like we're going to go and learn about the pigs and the chickens on another day. Anyway, she's like super psyched. I think that she would just love to be a farmer. So All Grass Farms. And then you can actually go there and get fresh beef, raw milk, fresh chickens. I actually got my Thanksgiving turkey from there, and it was fresh, and everyone at my table was like, this is the best turkey ever because it didn't go through that freezing process. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
awesome. Well, great places to know up in McHenry County. Those are good spots.
Yeah.
From selling real estate and being up there, like those are like the towns. Like those are your go-tos.
Yeah,
there for sure.
Yeah, I like
Thanks
the
for sharing.
calm, the nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a good place to grab peace, right?
Yes, it is.
So if people want to know more about you, where can they go? Whether it's therapy or whether it's to be able to find your book.
Yeah, so if you're closer to the St. Charles area and you would like to go to see the therapist in person, that's www.balancewellnesscollective.com. You can learn more about the therapy services. Again, I always have clinical interns as well. So with that, we have a sliding scale. So we take insurance. We're in network with most major PPO insurance: Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, Magellan, United Healthcare, and some other little insurances. So don't be afraid to have finances be a barrier. We'll probably figure it out. And then if you'd like to see me, I'm in Algonquin. And then if you'd like to see, we're all of Illinois with telehealth, which is amazing. So
beautiful.
Illinois licensing with myself, with the other therapists on staff, but really we see people in all of Illinois. And then I do coaching kind of worldwide as well. So really I'm accessible to many more people that way. And that's www.amywilhelmi.com.
And you do speaking?
I do speaking events.
Yes,
I do speaking events. I have these books.
Somebody wants the book. Where is
it? So those are available on Amazon, and I'm sure that you can attach a link to the books.
We'll put the link down in the copy for you to be able to find these, and all three of them.
All three of them are on Amazon. Yeah, the small one called "Make Mental Gains." I've had people say that they can read it to their children. It's more of kind of like a motivational, like we just talked about, holistic lifestyle practices. So how can you help your mental health in kind of all of these mind, body, and spirit realms?
I love it. The tagline, make mental gains, and then the tagline is 12 ways to create a formula for success in your belief system, life, and business. I dig it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you for joining us today. It means the world to us to have this type of conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and we look forward to sharing it with the world. Rocco,
yes.
for another one.
Another one in the books.
Enjoy it in this process with you, and going into things that maybe aren't easy always to talk about, but we're still going there. So I'm glad to have you, that partner in crime.
Back at you.
Yeah. I think our hope as we continue to do this, guys, is that we can make a better tomorrow. The world's a hot mess, but here locally we have the tools and the resources. If we're willing to do the work as community members, we could have a better, more abundant community. So a big part of that is mental health. Life is hard, and if you don't think so, I want to meet you, and I want to know like all your surroundings and what you're missing, because life's hard for all of us at certain times. It's ups and downs. So to be able to get right practice and to be able to go to therapy, and now there's no excuse because now you have telehealth with Amy's company. You can get yourself right, and you could be better for you, and you could be better for the people that are around you. So my hope is that you get yourself right, or you continue on that journey.
Listen to what your body needs.
Drop the mic.
Right.
Listen to what your body needs, my friends. It's telling you something. So peace out.
Peace.